and welcome. Today we are taking a full look at the NERF N-Series StrikeBack. This is one of the last remaining N-Series blasters that we haven't taken a look at. The StrikeBack includes 18 N1 darts and honestly looks pretty cool. Now let's jump right in. Included in the box is of course the StrikeBack itself. We get 18 N-Series darts and 2 clip-on dart holders. The dart holders fit right on to the right and left. It doesn't really matter which direction they go in, and you just line them up and push until they clip. And on the other side, with both of these attached, and considering what you can hold in the stock, you can hold an extra 12 darts on the StrikeBack on top of the 6 dart capacity. Now let's go over the N-Series StrikeBack. First off, the blaster does feature one N-Strike tactical rail. Like I mentioned earlier, the blaster does hold additional darts, 6 between these two and 6 between these two. The blaster is pump action, but like all of the other N-Series blasters, does not feature slam fire, which is a shame. We do have a reprime switch right here, so if your priming handle gets stuck, you can override that lock by pressing forward on the switch. And like you probably just saw here, this blaster does have a bit of a gimmick. It's a pretty useless feature as far as being practical, but I think it's super cool. Whenever you prime the blaster, this whole orange slide will go back, and when you pull the trigger, it launches forward. You can also do this separate from the priming action, so there's plenty of fidgety goodness with this blaster. And as far as ergonomics, from the perspective of an adult-sized person, it's okay. The forward handle is angled pretty well, and I don't mind it. The rear handle is great. I really appreciate how this was designed. It reminds me a lot of holding a rough cut. But when it comes to the stock, like the Sharpfire, it's really just there to hold extra darts. Luckily, it doesn't get in the way too much, and it does hold extra darts, so I don't see it as a huge negative. Now, the StrikeBack has a 6 dart internal magazine. So to load the blaster, we're just going to pull the priming handle back, and that reveals the internal magazine. Loading the blaster is very similar to a Mega Magnus, or more specifically to the N-Series, the Shadow Storm. Like the Shadow Storm, the blaster is very smooth to load. Now let's put some shots over the Chronograph. 83, 79, 82, 74, 80, duplicate 80, and we're out. I would say that's pretty standard N-Series performance. We're getting high 70s, low 80s. It's not too bad. I'm pretty satisfied with that performance. Now let's fire some shots downrange. I do really like this gimmick. It feels very unnecessary, but very old school NERF. I just like it. The StrikeBack is not trying to be a super practical blaster, and this part embraces that. Now I'm going to empty these 6 darts more quickly. Despite having this extra unnecessary mechanism, the StrikeBack seems to feed very well. So what are my final thoughts on the NERF N-Series StrikeBack? In a world where we have so many pro-level competitive blasters, it's nice to see an N-Series blaster that really just feels like it's there to be fun. I would say the blaster doesn't really take itself super seriously. If you want a more practical N-Series blaster that has an internal magazine, I would say the Shadow Storm is quite a bit more practical than this blaster because it's smaller and it has a larger capacity. But the Shadow Storm does not have that shotgun feel, which a lot of people are going to love about the StrikeBack. If you're totally against N-Series, I completely understand that. This has been a pretty controversial line, but I really like the StrikeBack. It's a fun blaster to fire. It's a fun blaster to kind of plink around with. Accuracy is about what you'd expect from N-Series, sometimes really good and other times not so great. But a blaster like this would be perfect for close quarters inside fun, in a more casual space. And I can't stress enough how much I really appreciate this extra sliding gimmicky piece. Because it feels very old school NERF, it adds a lot of character to the blaster where it might not have had as much character before. Like a laser tag blaster having recoil, it's not a necessary feature, but it adds to the feel of the blaster. So overall, as a casual N-Series NERF blaster, I'm actually giving the StrikeBack a thumbs up. If you're not against N-Series, or if you want to try the dart type out, this is a pretty cool blaster to start out with if you like the look and the idea of the StrikeBack. If you are interested in this blaster, I will have the link in my description. Thank you very much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the NERF N-Series StrikeBack. Have a good one, subscribe for more, and happy blasting.